Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Yusuf Fisher, and I was born 1956 in Maitland. My late mom, Sulayla Fisher, and late father was Suleiman Fisher, and the two of them moved on to retreat. The community there, they were Muslims, but of course there wasn't real education, Islamic education or anything going on there. So the two of them then started off by actually having madrasa. Of course, altyd was het genoem Islamse skool in die huis in die voorkamer. They have to listen to the adhan, Maghrib during Ramadan in steamwork. So if the wind is blowing in another direction, they can't hear it. So what my parents did is they actually got a horn which they fitted to the roof. My late brother, Allah grant him Jannah, he then would actually make the adhan for Maghrib so people could know it's time to break their fast. Later years, they acquired, through the help of many people, land, and they actually had what's then erected, Salah Khana, which is still standing in retreat, in Cafe. And of course, the upbringing, the very strict upbringing. When I always talk about die dae toe kinders nog kinders was, because that's the time when you were treated as a child. Treat the child with respect, but also make sure that the respect that the child has for the parent and for the elders is also there, and it should be more, because that is how I was raised by the two of them. Of course, I started working for it's actually a corporate company, where I then became, later years, I became a facilitator, lecturer for them. And because the company then amalgamated, so they joined with an overseas company from America, the Americans then felt that they would like to, as you know how they do things bigger, whatever, they wanted to have a recording studio for the teaching. They call it SkyTrain, where they have a studio, and the studio would then serve all the classrooms in South Africa. And that is how I then, because I was one of the lecturers, I was then sent to Wits University. It's called Wits TV, because that is where you are then trained, and I was trained in becoming a TV presenter, a TV producer. Very instrumental in my training was especially the guy called Jeremy Meggs. Jeremy is the person that was known for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Those days, the program on TV, they had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. That's Jeremy Meggs. Also a lady from Britain called Kate Turkington. So the two of them were instrumental in training me in becoming the presenter and producer for TV, that was. And that is where I then received training in script writing. And that is also the time when they started with the radio station. I was auditioned, and that was 25 years ago when they started with the radio station. So I was there, or I am there since inception. My stint was 9 till 12, 9 till 12. Which is the very same stint I have up till today. 25 years later, I'm still 9 to 12. I love this program so much. It's the golden hour. Focus is on the elders. it's still running on radio, and I'm grateful for that. As we know, people they pass on, but others become elders, so there's always people listening to die daar toe kinders nog kinders was. I grew up in apartheid. It wasn't a nice feeling, especially as a young person. All young people have aspiration. All young people have dreams. White youngsters would be doing, and we can't do it. We won't be allowed to do it. Having to go to certain beaches. Now that is a sore point, because even up till today, if people really look at it, you will find all the beaches that were for so-called colored people are all the beaches that's rocky. You have to climb over a mountain before you get to the sea, before you get your feet wet. Whereas if you look at the beaches, Sea Point and all those camps, all of those places, lovely. And then also, when you went to places like Camps Bay and that, you've got to be very careful where you walk also, because remember, if certain people come down can we call it, on the pavement, then you also have to be aware of the fact that, okay, miskien 'n pad gee want hier kom hulle aan. So you always had questions, and you were always told to don't ask questions by your parents. Don't ask questions, because obviously they knew what it was all about. We didn't. And it wasn't a nice time. Really, it wasn't. A lot of youngsters, they have heard about apartheid, but I don't think they would have been able to live apartheid, because remember, we lived it. In Cape Town, we also had raw talent, people that didn't go to colleges, study music and so on, but of the best musicians. And because they couldn't actually do their thing here, experience their true talent, or showcase their talent, they then went overseas. But they are Cape Townians, and for some of them it's even too sad to talk about the reason why they are in England or Cape Town today. People my age, people maybe a little older than me. And some of us then stayed. We remained here for no other reason, but we couldn't go anywhere. Right. So we stayed here, we lived it, and alhamdulillah we survived it, but it left a bitter taste in the mouth. It left a bitter taste. Alhamdulillah, I wasn't one of or my family wasn't of the families that were forcibly removed, because where we lived, it was on the, we call it on the border, whites on the other side of the border, coloreds on the other side, so we were safe. But then you think about people like your grandfather and them, Claremont, District 6, to name a few, Newlands, all those places where people were forcibly removed. And if we look at the situation today, with everybody having this bad thing, saying all these nasty things about gangsterism and, drug addiction, and please, I'm not condoning it, but what I'm saying is that is actually a social illness. Came about because of being removed. The late Tully Peterson, he once wrote something that I'll always remember, when he said that, do you know what it's like to be trapped like a rat in a council flat? Now you know what that points to. You get people coming from well-to-do areas. They live in posh houses, whatever. Then they would come to the Cape Flats, to the disadvantaged areas, and they would tell young people, look, you shouldn't live like this. You shouldn't do this. But you come from the glass house, and you want to come and tell us here, where we are living like rats in a council flat, how many family members in one house, but you come and tell us, no, what you tend to forget, what people tend to forget is that even people in poorer communities, even young people in poorer communities have the same aspiration as any other youngster. For example, you come from your well-to-do areas, Saturday afternoon, you go to the mall, you go to whatever. That poor youngster in the council areas got the same desire, but can't. We lived apartheid, and unfortunately, the younger generation, many of them are products of apartheid, and they also have to now live with the mess that was left by apartheid. Yeah. They were the bosses, they were the government, they were everything. The humiliation that our people had to endure. The lady, my mother, your mother, whoever's mother, raised this white child from baby. Once he starts talking, she has to call him Kleinbaas. And he would call her on her name. The dad, your dad, my dad, your grandpa, would be somebody that works in the garden. You know what he's called? A garden boy. Elderly man. But the young lady, 5, 6, 7 years old, would say that's our garden boy. That was the kind of humiliation that our parents had to endure, and we had to endure, because for many of us those were our parents, so we would see it, and you would have this pain inside of you, but what else could you do? If you talk too much against that apartheid government, they would remove you. What was our greatest fear? Was to hear a car 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock at night. Because that is the time when the secret police would come and pick up whoever's going to disappear. When I say disappear, they come, they arrest you, and that's it. There's no such thing as you must appear within 24 hours or 48 hours. You disappear. Nobody will know where you are. Nobody will know what happened to you. Nothing like that. Youngsters today. Alhamdulillah, I have 2 grandchildren, 4 years old, techno. It's all about the phone. They know how to work the phone better than what I do. And you know, especially at that age, when they do something with that phone, and they ask you for a spa, and I say no, and they do it, they look at you as if to say, hey, but you're stupid. Eh? Whereas in our times, we played in the street. And the favorite thing was football in the street. That is, okay, you have other children playing things like Kennedy and what's it with the 3 tins, all that. But for most of us, it was football. But the big thing about it was that we knew what it was like to play. The biggest punishment that your parents could give you to keep you inside. Keep you inside, and you stand by the window and you see how everyone else is playing. Daar is die swaarste, like jy maar liewe pak gegee het. You would play, and that's why you would find that the kids those days, they were healthy because they were running around. The only form of media, besides the Argus, which was famous amongst our people, was the radio. The radio, and that's why I love radio, because you had to listen to the radio and paint a picture. As they say, radio is the theater of the mind. The old people had funny ways of doing things. You come and sit there and, oh, okay, ek gaan speel. Jy kan maar saam die anti-praat. That's how they will tell you. They will make you understand it's not your place to sit here. Or wie se tande getel jy. Ons ma's en pa's was experts hoe om jou gat ordentlik te slat. And how did we turn out? Unlike what they're saying today, no, it's abuse, child abuse and wat? Jy moet hy tyd vir jou ma gesê het as child abuse, dan sal jy abuse gesien het. You understand? So yeah, nog 'n pak. It was all about discipline, all about respect. Now you're playing outside, the auntie on the other side wants you to go to the shop. She's not going to shout twice. Sy het een keer roep. En nou kom jy terug. En sê maar, yes, like it. Nou weet, as jou naam Yusuf was, as jou naam Yussi. As jou naam, so jou oom se naam Ismail was, is dit Maitland. Nou vir baie bly daai naam. In die case, nou kom jy terug. Weet jy, Yussi, ek het mos vergiet man. Ek weer, jy kan niks sien, jy moet dit weer gooi. Die ouens speel op die hoek. Duis. Sien laat kom die imam aan. Nou daai tyd, those days they would wear these hats. I mean, I'm talking about proper decent hats, man. The hat cost more than the pants that they got on. You know. So there's the imam coming or there's a preacher coming. Somebody would take the hat and throw it on the dice game. Money and everything underneath. Imam or the preacher will know they're playing, but it's the respect they show. Imam moet nie sien die dice nie. Even though we didn't have, but what we had was respect, and what we had was to grow up in a manner that was loving, and that nothing can buy. People will make up a game as they come from school, and somebody would be thinking already about a game. Even coming from school, as you're walking, you're playing a game. What is the one thing young people say nowadays? We're bored, isn't it? Your children, Mommy, we're bored. By ons was nie, daar's nie tyd om bored te wees nie, daar's te veel games. You know what is the saddest part of a game is when you play, let's say, soccer. And you two teams, and the one team that loses, the guy in that team, he's the owner of the ball, he takes the ball. Classy game. That's the saddest part. So my primary school years was at the Moravian School in Maitland, and then it was just down the road to Kensington High. Firstly, if your parents are not that well-to-do, as they would call it those days, standard 6, standard 8. If you go to standard 8, you've got a degree. You could get a job as the person that runs errands in the office. Because those days, there was no such thing as computers, or WhatsApp, or nothing, as you can imagine. So the mailman in the office is the one that would carry a letter from this building to that building. And if you stand at 6 and you wear a tie, then that's your job, medicine. Wanting to study medicine, but of course that was a pipe dream. As Allah has put it, that later in life, I became a paramedic for 7 years. So I could not live my dream, but at least I could feel what it was like. Allah's blessed me with one daughter. Alhamdulillah, Allah then took her away. Allah granted her and mommy channel to those. But I was blessed to have so many children on the outside. That just before, people might think, yeah, maar wat maak jy die Yusuf, wat het hy aan so klomp buitekinders? During the time when I was a paramedic, I can't remember how many babies I delivered. Wallahi, asumba by Allah, countless. And that was about 30 years ago. Baie babies, en hy 7 jaar gedeliver, en ek is dankbaar vir Allah daarvoor, because Allah blessed me in that way, to be able to serve society, my community. The best thing that any person can experience is to see how a child is born. I have this program with Professor Kala where we do medical stuff, and I feel comfortable because many of the terminology is known to me. To have been the real thing, of course, that was the desire, but it never happened. Not sorry about it, because like I said, at least how many people get a chance to at least get a glimpse of what they would have wanted to. I got a glimpse to have become a paramedic, so I at least had a glimpse to work with people. Sharifa, I met when the two of us was about 19 years old.